Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. The Taliban say they have seized 2 districts in Afghanistan's northern Balkh and Jozjan provinces. A Taliban spokesperson said the Afghan security personnel surrendered and joined them. Meanwhile, Taliban's deputy head Mullah Baradar said they want a genuine Islamic system in the country to give women their rights. Pakistan Army kills 2 terrorists in an intelligence-based operation in Spinwam area of North Waziristan district. The military's media wing says a soldier was also martyred during the exchange of fire. The ISPR said the terrorists were active members of the band Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and were involved in the attacks on security forces. Yemen's Houthi rebels claim to have shot down a U.S. spy drone over Marib city with a surface-to-air missile. In a tweet, a Houthi spokesperson said the Scan Eagle drone was carrying out hostile actions in the airspace of the Serba district. This comes a day after the Arab coalition said it shot down 17 Houthi drones launched towards southern Saudi cities. Armenians are voting to elect a new parliament today after Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan called snap elections. Around 2.6 million people are eligible to vote to elect 101-member parliament for 5 years. Pashinyan, who has lost much of his popularity after a military defeat to Azerbaijan last year, is hoping to renew his mandate. Brazil has become the world's second country to have more than 500,000 COVID-19 deaths. Meanwhile, thousands of Brazilians have taken to the streets across the country to protest President Jair Bolsonaro's pandemic response. In Pakistan, 37 people lost their lives to the virus and over 1,000 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.8 million lives and infected over 178 million people so far. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The Taliban say they have seized 2 districts in Afghanistan's northern Balkh and Jozjan provinces. A Taliban spokesperson said the Afghan security personnel surrendered and joined them. The group claims to have seized more than 40 districts in recent weeks across the rugged countryside. Meanwhile, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani warned the Taliban of a serious response if they want enmity. He said the Taliban should decide between a political solution or continuing animosity. Ghani made these remarks while announcing nominees for defense and interior ministries. The Taliban say they are committed to the safety of embassies, charities, and their employees in Afghanistan. The Taliban's deputy head Mullah Baradar made the assurances in a meeting with EU's envoy Thomas Nicholson in Doha. In a tweet, a Taliban spokesperson said the 2 sides discussed the Afghan peace process. He said the leaders also reflected on the current situation in Kabul. In a statement, Baradar urged the Kabul administration to release Taliban prisoners. He said they want a genuine Islamic system in Afghanistan that would make provisions for women's rights in line with cultural traditions and religious rules. Meanwhile, fighting rages in the war-torn country. The Afghan Defense Ministry says over 100 Taliban were killed during operations in 5 provinces. In Pakistan, the security forces have killed 2 terrorists in an intelligence-based operation in North Waziristan's district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The military's media wing says the terrorists were active members of the banned organization Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The ISPR said the terrorists were involved in the attacks on the security forces. The military said a soldier was also martyred during the exchange of fire in the Spinwam area of the district. 32-year-old Naik Nazkat Khan was a resident of Attock city. Yemen's Houthi rebels claim to have shot down a U.S. spy drone over Marib city with a surface-to-air missile. In a tweet, a Houthi spokesperson said the Scan Eagle drone was carrying out hostile actions in the airspace of the Sirva district. The spokesperson said they documented the whole operation and will release the video later. This comes a day after the Arab coalition said it shot down 17 Houthi drones launched towards southern Saudi cities. The conciliation of the deliberate and systemic escalation by the Houthis is equivalent to war crimes. Earlier, the Houthis claimed to have successfully targeted King Khalid Air Base in Khamis Mushahid. The United States says it will continue indirect talks with Iran for the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal despite the controversial presidential election. A State Department spokesperson said Washington regrets Iranians were denied their right to choose their own leaders. This comes as the latest session of the sixth round of the talks is set to open in Vienna today. However, the meeting comes amid doubts about the impacts of the new administration in Tehran. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister said a breakthrough in the Vienna talks is possible even before the new president-elect takes office in August. Speaking in Antalya, Javad Zarif also said that the United States couldn't achieve its objectives through economic war. Iran's president-elect Ebrahim Raisi has pledged to form a revolutionary and anti-corruption government. Judiciary Chief Raisi won Iranian presidential elections by a landslide. In a victory statement, Raisi thanked Iranians for the massive turnout. He said that he will try to expand justice, which was the prime objective of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Meanwhile, the result of the polls has garnered mixed reactions from the international community. Pakistan, Russia, Turkey, Qatar, Kuwait, Syria, Iraq, as well as the UAE extended facilitations to Raisi. However, the United States, as well as other international rights organizations, including Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, termed the election unfair. Armenians are voting to elect a new parliament today after Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan called snap elections. Around 2.6 million people are eligible to vote to elect 101-member parliament for 5 years. Pashinyan, who has lost much of his popularity after a military defeat last year to Azerbaijan, is hoping to renew his mandate. Opinion polls suggest that the party of Pashinyan and that of former President Robert Kocharyan are in a tight race. In a recent interview, Kocharyan pledged to start negotiations on the Nagorno-Karabakh borders if he came into power. A winning party or alliance needs at least 51 seats and can be assigned additional seats in order to form a government. Myanmar's military rulers have rejected the UN General Assembly's resolution calling for arms embargo against the country. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry described the resolution as being based on one-sided allegations and false assumptions. It added that letters of objection have been sent to the UN Secretary General and the General Assembly's president. The UN General Assembly passed the resolution on Friday and called on the military to restore the country's democratic transition. It also demanded Myanmar's armed forces to immediately release all the political detainees, including Aung San Suu Kyi. Meanwhile, daily anti-coup protests continue in Yangon and Mandalay despite the killing of over 870 civilians by the military. Brazil has become the world's second country to have more than 500,000 COVID-19 deaths. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.8 million lives and infected over 178 million people so far. More in this report.
Brazil's COVID-19 numbers continue to rise amid President skepticism as the government is accused of passing up earlier opportunities to buy vaccines. Only 11% of Brazilians are fully vaccinated and 29% have received the first dose. Thousands took to the streets across the country to protest President Jair Bolsonaro's pandemic response.
He took too long to buy the vaccine. Herd immunity won't do any good. The only immunity you can get is with the vaccine. There is no early treatment as well. I have lost millions of friends, lost my cousin. Millions of people are orphans, fatherless, motherless, and childless. Bolsonaro is genocidal.
After wreaking havoc in India, the Delta variant is now ravaging several other countries as governments scramble to contain fresh outbreaks. The UK has announced it is now facing a third wave while the vaccine program races to outpace the Delta variant spread. Belgium is also set to ban entry to non-EU travelers from Britain to limit the spread of the feared variant. Meanwhile, Russia's capital Moscow reported the highest number of daily cases for the second day in a row. The city's hospitals are flooded with patients due to the Delta variant.
The people we get in contact with every day, supermarket workers, taxi drivers, nurses, and ticket sellers, etc. I would really want them to be alive and healthy. If we want to remain in an internal pandemic within Russia, to accept those people's handshake is a hazard. We would go on being COVID hostages and wait until it goes away by itself, but it won't go away by itself.
In Afghanistan, the health officials have warned that deadly third surge of COVID-19 is worsening in the war-torn country amid acute shortages of oxygen supplies. Uganda is also witnessing a surge in infections made worse by an array of variants. Meanwhile, the UAE has decided to suspend travelers from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Namibia from entering the country over rising cases.
Pakistan has registered 37 deaths and just over 1,000 cases in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's positivity rate stands at 2.55%. Meanwhile, Pakistan's planning minister Asad Umar says Pakistan has administered a record 2.3 million vaccinations this week. He further added that the country is set to receive over 1 million doses today and almost 5 million more in the next 10 days. He appreciated the nation for participating, saying next week there will be a new record. World Refugee Day is being observed globally today with the United Nations theme of Together We Heal, Learn and Shine. Pakistan joined the world community to commemorate the day. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said that this day reminds the world to boost investments in conflict prevention and resolution. In his message, Qureshi said for 4 decades, Pakistan has led by example in refugee protection. He said Pakistan has contributed more than a fair share of international responsibility by hosting millions of refugees. The foreign minister noted Pakistan still hosts around 3 million Afghans, providing them necessary protection. Pakistan also paid tribute to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees for its commendable work. Ethiopia is all set to hold national and regional parliamentary elections on Monday. Earlier, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said these will be the country's first free and fair polls after decades of repressive rule. Voting has been delayed in 110 out of the 547 constituencies due to violent conflicts and logistical problems. Some opposition parties are also boycotting the elections over alleged harassments of their members. Abiy's Prosperity Party remains the front runner in a field of 46 parties vying for parliamentary seats. Some 37 million Ethiopia's 109 million people have registered to cast their ballots. The elections were originally scheduled for August last year, but Abiy postponed them due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, has left for Washington. President Vladimir Putin and his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden agreed to their return to their respective envoys during the summit in Geneva. While boarding a flight, Antonov said that there is a lot of work to be done and Moscow is counting on progress. He said he is returning with an optimistic mindset and meetings will begin on Monday and continue throughout the week. Moscow recalled Antonov for consultations after Biden said in March that he believed Putin was a killer. The U.S. ambassador later returned to Washington for consultations too. The Kremlin says a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin with the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is potentially possible. In an interview, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, however, no preparations for such a meeting are currently underway. Peskov added that the meeting may repair the currently strained bilateral relations. Earlier, British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace also admitted the possibility of a meeting between Johnson and Putin. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. At least 15 people have been killed as gunmen aboard a number of vehicles attacked several neighborhoods near the U.S. border. Police said attacks occurred in the eastern part of Rayzona City, which borders Texas. Police said the clashes have caused widespread panic in the area. The shootings have mobilized the Army, National Guard, the state police, and other agencies. Authorities said they have detained one person and seized 3 vehicles. They added the motive behind the attacks remain unknown. However, investigations have been launched into the attacks. In the U.S. state of Florida, one person has been killed and another injured as a car rammed into a crowd at a parade in Bulletin Manors. Police say the driver has been taken into custody. They added that the authorities are still gathering information on the collision. A witness said it was an intentional act right across the lanes of traffic. In a statement, Democratic Representative Debbie Wasserman-Schultz said that she was deeply shaken and devastated that a life was lost. In the United States, Storm Claudette has hit the southern states on the Gulf of Mexico, bringing strong winds and heavy rains. The National Hurricane Center says after moving ashore in Louisiana and Mississippi, the storm is heading to Alabama. The center has issued flash flood warnings for multiple states along the coast, including Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia. Claudette had sustained maximum wind speed of 65 kilometers per hour. The storm also disrupted Juneteenth celebrations that commemorate the emancipation of African American slaves. In southwest China, a research base of giant panda breeding has been building itself into a cradle for the endangered species. It has become a world-renowned must-see scenic spot. More in this report.
The research base in Chengdu welcomes a great number of panda enthusiasts every year. In March 2021, the research base opened the Giant Panda Museum that aims to provide an immersive experience while demonstrating various interesting facts about the precious species. The museum also hopes to increase visitors' understandings of giant pandas and other wild animals. Not only are giant pandas precious animals to the Chinese people, but they also hold a reputation around the world for being adorable and playful. The Worldwide Fund uses a pattern of panda in the emblem and flag to call for the protection of all the precious and endangered species in the world. Giant pandas are an endangered species and live mainly in the mountains of northern Sichuan province and southern Gansu and Shanxi provinces. In recent years, conservation efforts have contributed to an increasing population of pandas with 500 to 1,000 mature adults. Giant pandas have been recategorized as vulnerable by the Red List in 2016, a mark of their growing population across the world.
Chinese astronauts undertake rigorous trainings and study complex theories as part of preparation for the nation's booming space station missions. This report has the details on China's space heroes.
Chinese astronauts strive to fulfill nation's space dream after years of training and testing as pressure builds up motivation and confidence guarantees success. In 4 to 5 years, astronauts have to study more than 100 of theoretical courses as part of their training. Astronauts recall their experiences of training for the prestigious job as extremely arduous. Liu Yang, China's first female astronaut, flew into space in 2012 aboard Shenzhou 9 and completed 15 aeromedicine experiments. While the first Chinese astronaut to go into space thrice, Zheng Haipeng recalled his tough endurance training overload. Recently, China successfully sent 3 astronauts into space aboard the Shenzhou 12 spaceship. Shenzhou 12 is the first manned mission during the construction of Tiangong to be completed by 2022.
It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.